and I was a bit skeptical in the beginning myself. It's like the WAG media people, it's the chaos DAO, it's yourself, it's myself. If you're asking for a lot and you haven't built reputation in the ecosystem, a lot of witch hunting. I think we just need to go back to some fundamentals. I thought the first one was ridiculous, right? High ask, no proposal, link, click here. I may get some thumbs down here. Someone might break the screen, right? And say, give me 50,000 KSM. I'll see you later, right? You just need to look on the chain and whose life is dependent on the treasury, right? To fund your entire life.
Hello and welcome to part 2 of this video series with Will, who's a paradox on Kusama and also on Polkadot. That's his alias. We spoke about validators in the first session, just to try to understand what validators have to go through, what it's like to set up a validator, the costs involved and everything like that. But this time we want to talk about open governance, which is one of the hot topics on Kusama because it is only available on Kusama right now, also known as Gov 2.0. It is going to come to Polkadot sometime this year, but for now, expect drama. So let's talk about Open Gov, Will. So what's been your opinion of it so far? Because, it's like from my point of view, I've noticed that when it first started, it was a bit of a mess because we didn't have like very clear guidelines on how to do things. So a lot of people, myself included, created the wrong extrinsics when it came to the pre-images because you first have to create a pre-image. We didn't use the proper extrinsic, and then we created a proposal and we linked it to that wrong pre-image hash, which in turn created a referendum on chain for 14 days with basically that's going to do nothing, even if it passes when it comes to voting. So like right now, I'm seeing people, understand more how it works, but we are into a different kind of drama situation. So let's start with the beginning. Like, what's your take on it?
Let's take it from the top.
Yeah, right? Let's take it from the top.
Okay.
What's your opinion of it so far?
All right. So first of all, I'm a Kusama council member on Kusama. And I would say still, because the pallet's still there and I'm still in the council, right? But I call it the outgoing council, right? Because eventually it's going out. Yeah. And so some of these things were familiar to me, right, in terms of like the pre-images and the hashes and stuff, but the workflow and the dynamics that is Open Gov was still new to me as well. As much as it was for you, it was for me. So yeah, it even took some getting used to. So I just want to say, even for pros, right, I think you still needed to feel your way around a bit. Right, maybe some use like a test net before, but I took my first dive into it on Kusama myself. Right, so that's one. There is a learning curve, and I think most of us are now familiar with it. I have never looked into the code base as much as I have to understand Open Gov. Let's put it that way. Even staking, all of those things. The most that I have done code reviews for was related to Open Gov, right? And that's a good thing. You go back to that source of truth. Okay, so we're there with in terms of technical and learning how to use it. I think Kusama it was needed. Right. First of all, I think Open Gov was needed, and I was a bit skeptical in the beginning myself, but I understand it a lot more, and it is needed. We look at the council as this authority, right? And I've heard Gav use the term first-class citizens. I don't agree with it, respectfully. Yeah, because it's a tough job. Right? It's not a paid job. You have to review proposals. You are subject to criticism, right, by the public, right, very often. And you have to do things in a timely manner, right? Yeah. So I don't see it exactly being first-class citizen, right, or some level of superiority of others. It is, it is work, right? Unpaid work. It depends on who you are and how you view things, but that's my perspective. So I respectfully disagree. But it also is a group of people that can be targeted by regulators or any or external bodies looking to identify centralization within the set, right, within the network. So I think it is very good that we have migrated to something more decentralized, right? So that's one. And then there's the agility, right? We have a lot more parallel things going on. And I think that's a good thing, and it may be a bad thing, right? Because with the previous council, we could limit how many things were presented to the council at a time, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 1, right?
Yeah.
But with Open Gov, it comes without any gatekeeping, right? You can have like, I think we have 9 up right now, right? So there's a lot more scope for consideration with Open Gov.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another aspect. The council in general, I think, would have been more mature minded. Some may say more technical minded. Individuals who I would say that I don't remember the entire list, and some of them have aliases, so I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But I can say that there were some good minds on the council, right? We have Bill, we have Raul, Yako. I think Sean's there. He has his own dev centric opinion, but I think it's still a good opinion, right? So we went from that to Open Gov, where it's everyone, it's like the WAG media people, it's the chaos DAO, it's yourself, it's myself, and these views may not have been the people may not have had that background in terms of decision making and stuff like that. So it's new in that aspect as well, right? Yeah. There's a maturity that I think maybe still lacks, right? Right, maybe still lacks. But yeah, so it was a chaos bringing moment, right? Yeah. So in addition to that, bringing views of individuals of a diverse ecosystem all together, trying to form consensus, right? There is a mechanism for it, right? But that would bring about some drama. Not to mention that the quality checks that so usually, before you go to the council, you'll be tabled, you'll be in a queue, and you move on ahead. Now you don't even, you can just go and, hey, I want to get this up and voted on right now. So the need for quality control and building good proposals is in the hands, in my opinion, of the voters. The voters need to say nay if you don't have a good proposal. Nay if you're asking for a lot and you haven't built reputation in the ecosystem, right? And I see, I don't want to call names, but there's a individual or maybe a few who are calling for, like, bounties to control things and, a lot of witch hunting. I think we just need to go back to some fundamentals, right? If you have built a reputation, the risk that you will abscond with funds and not deliver is lower, right? If it is that you are some new guy and you have not built a reputation, vote nay and say, hey, we would like to see you build, reduce this risk for us, build something, right? Come to the table with 50% completed, and let's see how it is, and we may go. And the people who are doing these proposals should also understand that the funding is the threshold. If you were to go to let's say outside of the Treasury, you were to go to a bank or lending institution or anything, the thresholds that they will put you through is a lot more stringent than you'll get on chain, right? So there's an opportunity cost, take it, right? Bring something to the table. If you don't have your reputation, build, right? And there are ways to build. And of course, I also see there's another batch, where we're focusing on proposals and audits and, ChatGPT. A proposal is a simple thing. if you have a good thought process, if you are thinking things through properly, your proposal will be easy.
Yeah.
What am I trying to achieve? Does it solve a problem?
Yeah.
Tell me about the problem it solves. How much is it going to cost? Right?
Yeah.
Don't just shoot, I want $50,000, right? Build up your cost based on what you plan to do. And then the last one, scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Easy, easy peasy. You do this in school.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, to go back to the most challenging proposal, I think the proposer also had a good reputation in the ecosystem because he's been contributing to GitHub and so. And I'm sure you can remember very well Virto Team. They had a major challenge, because if you remember, he was on the Kusamarian's AAG show a number of times, struggling to get that to pass. I mean, the asking amount was very large, and I guess that's what kind of prevented people from supporting it, right? I mean, he was asking for like $500,000 worth of Kusama at the time. So
yeah, there were a lot of gaps with regards to that proposal, to be honest, right? And it's, again, this is Open Gov, so each person has their individual views. So I saw those gaps. I think the first I thought the first one was ridiculous, right? You know, high ask, no proposal, link, click here, go, right? You know, all right. So that one failed. Everyone said, you know, hey, do a proposal. But the proposal just kept going on and on. You know, it wasn't like, I'm okay, guys, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to put a proposal together. I'm going to present it on chain. Yeah. So with that, I became also despondent. You know, like, oh, what do I need to check every 5 minutes? Keep hitting F5 to see an incremental proposal being built.
Yeah.
You know, no disrespect to the Virto team. I know that they were funded, and I think Tom had a big part to play with that. I don't think they were organized. And if you are asking for a large sum of funding, right? And there was also a concern with that because they seem to be fixed on a certain amount of KSM, even though the price, whatever, right? But if you are asking for a large amount of funding, you need to show that you are capable of managing it. And if it is that you are disorganized in your presentation of your proposal, it tells towards your disorganization in other areas. It may not be a favorable review. I may get some thumbs down here. Someone might break the screen, right? But, you know, that's just my opinion. You know, big ask, do a good proposal, please. I mean, small opportunity cost.
Yeah, but let's talk about the progress. So that was in the early days, right? That was like the biggest ask, if I remember correctly. I know that Tom from Stake Plus had a very large bounty as well for the 1K validator program, but that's a bounty. Like talking about the big spender track. Yeah, the IBP. So the big spender track was the biggest one, Virto Team. That was the first big request, as far as I'm aware, since Open Gov launched. But we've come a long way since then. So right now we've got the CoinStudio and his team of auditors who came up with even a really good structured template with what people should present in a proposal. Of course, you don't have to use that if you don't want to. So obviously nobody's forcing you to it. But if you do use that template, then you are putting yourself in a much better situation, especially if you even have a good track record, right? So let's talk about auditing and those new structured proposals. What do you think of those? What's your opinion of that?
I would like to say that I think it's, listen, it's an unfortunate thing that we need it. That's my opinion, right? Why do we need an audit to tell people to put together a good proposal or teach people how to put together a good proposal? It really blows my mind, right? But so that's one, right? Yes. But is it needed? Are we seeing bad proposals and do they need support? The answer to that is yes, right? I look at the cost of things, right? And I don't want to get into the CoinStudio thing. I think, you know, the cost for what was delivered, we could probably talk about that a bit, right? But was something needed? Yeah. are these audits sustainable? I see that he is trying to set up like a tip mechanism to help people who are supporting this.
Yeah.
I think it could be sustainable, but I think it's also subject to a bias of the person doing the audit, right?
Yeah.
And some may agree with it, and some may not. Some may say, okay, if it's a 2 for them, it's really like a 4 for me, or if it's a 2 for them, it's like a minus, it's a 0 for me, right? So yeah, it needs to be consistent in terms of the way it's reviewed and stuff like that, and it's at least it's something. I'll give it that. At this point in time, this formative point in time, it's something, and I hope that in the long run, it is not needed.
Yeah.
Right. That we develop a maturity to say these are the things that we expect, and we are going to vote nay because you have not met those expectations, those core expectations.
Yeah.
The council did not need a scorecard or an audit to guide them. And I think as individuals, we are growing into be like mini council members. And when we get to that tier, we won't need an audit to guide us.
Yeah, I agree. But it's also, I think it's the types of proposals we're seeing. I think back when the council was there, we didn't see this kind of proposals. It was mostly the technical ones, right?
No, we would have seen WAG Media and all of those things pass through the council. Yeah, but I mean, I'm a little more stringent on what I like to see in a proposal, right? But not all council members are like that, right? That's why you have a council, right?
Yeah.
Different views come into consensus. Yeah, so we would have, but there would have been some quality control, right? You would have had to go through a process before your proposal made it to the council, right? And if there are like 15 on a queue, you take, I would select the ones that are better and send that to the council, right? So you'll always stay at the bottom of the queue, right? And individuals like Brian Chen, Sean and stuff, I hope that they have some level of excellence demanded from them. So you don't send them like a one page and say, give me 50,000 KSM, I'll see you later, right? And get it approved, right? Yeah. So yeah, the quality was a lot better, I think, in the days of the council. Again, I'm not going back, those days are gone, but I hope to see that level of quality in Open Gov eventually, because if you don't have that level of quality, you don't get it passed.
Yeah. And let's talk about the sustainability of the Treasury. So right now we're sitting at around $10 million when it comes to in dollar value when Treasury funds. I think it's like 310,000 KSM or something like that. And so I'm curious, like, I know that Tom from Stake Plus is working on a plan to work around that and to enforce people to use to ask for a smaller amount or to request smaller amounts, maybe for shorter periods of times, but to make it more sustainable through a staking system. So I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that is sustainable to sustain the Kusama treasury? Or do you think we're going to dig into it? We're going to empty that treasury before the end of this year?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, in terms of the treasury, I think spending is good, right? I just want to say that, right? Spending is good, but we need to spend on the right things, right? So if we are spending on the right things, it increases the quality of the ecosystem. Programs like this, or there may be technical programs, things like that, experimentation, or service offering. This is what we want to spend, but we want to spend on high quality items, right? In terms of the sustainability of the treasury, I mean, we have to test when the treasury goes dry, right? We have to. It's going to reach that point. I think when I also, for instance, we have Adam. Adam has a proposal that does some kind of staking back, taking burn funds, staking it, throwing it back in the treasury.
Yeah.
There is an effect to it, right? I think in terms of the burn mechanism, in terms of there's some macroeconomics that I need to sit and consider. I would not, for instance, with Adam's proposal, one thing came to mind, how are these people selected? We have some that are businesses, right? Versus individuals who only nominate their own validators. Those are things that come to mind. And even if we throw it to the 1KV, is it like the foundation using itself? I think there are too many macro considerations. The Treasury, I think responsible spending, we are trying to find excuses or workarounds for responsible decisions and responsible spending. I'll just summarize just that. And we need to address that as the problem instead of, coming up with ways to fill the Treasury.
So let's talk about the black swan scenario. Let's say the Treasury will be empty on Kusama. Let's say it gets to that.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to all those teams? Like, for example, we've had one recently where, what's the name?
Web3 Alert, is it?
Web3 Alert, yeah, correct, sorry. Web3 Alert, and also there was the wallet as well, Polkadot. So what's going to happen to all those sort of smaller teams who are constantly going to the Treasury for funding? Do you see them going to Polkadot to get continuation funding, or do you just see them die out and abandon their products, which they've been building for so long?
Yeah, well, they need to make that determination. And to be honest, that's these individual projects need to develop models for their own sustainability, right? It's we can't depend on the Treasury for everything, and perhaps in some cases maybe the Treasury can be cover some costs but not all, right? Even if the Treasury runs empty, you can still approve a proposal and let it sit in the Treasury spend queue until the Treasury funds are accumulated, right?
Interesting.
Yeah,
so then
and
who
that's
takes
why
priority?
I said, we want to test. Well, I should check the code on that. I would just like to say it's based on the order in which your proposal entered the queue, right? Yeah. So I would like to say that, but I need to visit the code.
Okay, so we're assuming, so it's possible that your proposal, even if it passes and it's in the queue, it's not going to cancel out after the 6-day spend period is over, right? It's going to stay there in the queue till the next spend period, and then till the next one, and so on, right? Until there's available funds.
Well, that is my assumption, right? And that's why I say, we need to test the system at some point in time with an empty Treasury. Though you see, the thing is, Claudio, there are a lot of people who are dependent, their lives are dependent on the Treasury right now. And when you do that, and I don't want to call, there are programs, right? You just need to look on the chain and whose life is dependent on the Treasury, right? It develops some emotions, right? Because that's your bread and butter. If I were to tell you I'm going to get rid of your job tomorrow, anyone, they will be they will bring concerns, they will voice their opinions, they'll be upset. We have seen real life riots and
of course,
yes, and that is what I see happening here. We have built a dependence, we have built lives on Treasury funding. And because it's going away, it's like, oh my gosh, that's affecting me, right? And we would see like, okay, let's try to build staking this, and let's have a bounty, those sort of things. So develop sustainable models that doesn't depend on the Treasury to fund your entire life, right? and maybe you might be a little more reasonable to other things.
I agree, but I have to raise one concern here from a media perspective. So
A
as
media,
myself,
okay,
I'm a content creator, right? So
yeah, of
before the
course.
Treasury, because I didn't even know about the Treasury system that you can actually get funding through the council. Like I knew the Treasury exists, but only for tips. I used to send tip requests when I used to do like a tutorial about Polkadot or something, right? So the council would usually vote on that and I would get a tip. This was in Gov 1. Now, one of the things that I've noticed myself is like as a content creator, if I don't sustain from the Treasury, then my other option is to go to sponsors. And so if I go to sponsors, then, people will like, content creators will be like seen as the bad guys, like, oh, look, you're being sponsored by this bad project or this project, because sometimes you may be even forced to accept less reasonable projects just to get the money, because you need to put food on the table if you're sustaining yourself off this. So now I'm not only talking about myself, but for all the media creators, right? Let's assume you are supporting the Polkadot ecosystem as a content creator and you need funding. So you know that the Treasury exists, you're going to the Treasury, but then the Treasury no longer pays you. So you have to take the alternative route to continue sustaining or quit altogether. That's the other option, and work in a different type of job. So let's assume you want to continue receiving support as a coin holder, right? You are an ecosystem guy, you're a coin holder, you want to see those videos, you want to see support, you want to see the community come in because they've seen the videos. You don't want those people with 100x pump videos to continue supporting the ecosystem, when in reality it's a bad representation. You want educators, right? So how can you like work around this kind of situation of a content creator who just simply wants to educate people on the ecosystem, produce tutorials, produce reviews of what's out there, but also continue to get funding to be sustainable without taking that negative route towards bad sponsorship? Like how would you see that as an alternative?
All right. Well, I mean,
from your point of view as a user.
Well, the thing is, it's a problem that, I mean, I expect you guys to content creators to also look at, right? Because if you say, okay, well, I can only run if I get funding from the Treasury. How do other ecosystems do it? How do content creators for other ecosystems like Cardano or Cosmos or Ethereum? How does that work, right?
They do deals. They normally get deals, like they get sponsored. Like a lot of those get sponsored. If you check their channels, they'll say this video was sponsored by this or that, and some of them even run validators themselves, like
right.
CryptoCito on Cosmos.
He's a popular one, yeah. So the thing is, there are options, right? And I think sometimes when we look at, hey, I don't want to be sponsored by a program, I think it becomes like an excuse to just say, hey, I want to get funded by the Treasury. I don't want to be funded by Moonbeam or Easter or something like that. I just want DOT. I want to go to the DOT Treasury. So, I mean, these are good projects. I don't think anyone's, we should go out, right? And try to find alternative methods to fund. This is with your own interest in mind, because as we are seeing with Kusama, the Treasury is not this unlimited pool, right? There is a rate at which it is replenished, right? And I have always found that I think when Jay was doing his budget projections and stuff, he was saying, hey, we're only asking for 10% of the Treasury or 8% of the Treasury at the time. But we need to look at how much funds actually come into the Treasury per year. That's how I would look at it, right? And we budget based on that. And anything that's in excess of that is we are spending more, right? So deficit budget or whatever the case may be. That's how I see it, right? You can't just say, okay, I'm grabbing 10% of the Treasury, right? That in itself is a model for depletion in the future. So I mean, we need to find things. And if it is that we are promoting videos with 10 or 20 views, it's not going to work, right? But if a video has like 100,000 views, or the person has 1 million subscribers, that in itself, I think YouTube offers you get something for that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But those people will
Yeah.
never go to the Treasury. Let's be honest. I mean, those people will
Yeah,
always be.
they won't, right?
Yeah.
Well, what I mean is that use the treasury funding as a bootstrapping method to get you
Yeah.
out there to keep things sustainable. There will be some things that you would be kind of core, right? We need I don't think we need like 1 million wallets, right? But
Yeah.
right, there can be some funding allocated to wallets.
Yeah.
There can be some funding allocated to RPC providers, right? Because we are fortunate, to be honest, having also gone out to Cosmos and stuff, to have RPC provision so well integrated into our applications.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and freely available, fast. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So I won't go into too much detail because I know, the video has a certain amount of time.
Yeah, no problem. Cool. Thank you for your thoughts on that. Now let's talk about the proposal that you're planning to launch very soon with regards to database resizing. So do you want to talk about that, please?
Okay. So yeah. So first of all, I'm gonna just talk about the three main topics, and you saw the proposal, did you? Right?
Yeah, I had a look through
So
it.
I will ask you for your opinion, right? So there are three areas that I want to look at, right? One is the size of databases, and there are different configurations and different flags that can be applied, and there are 24 that I've identified, and I have consulted with experts as to whether or not these are meaningless or meaningful. So we actually cut it down to 24. So that's one, and we are trending these database sizes over time, and to see if there's any concern, right? Like if it's growing really fast, or if there's any trends, or if one particular configuration might be good. So once the data is there, there's a lot of prodding and prying that we can do to see if there's anything quite meaningful. But what is immediate is that a fast growth rate can affect us as validators, right? The next is restoration time of databases from warp sync and archives. So it's just general information. I don't think that's extremely core, except for we just want to make sure that warp sync, right, which validators use to get a new validator up quickly, it should be within a very small time, right? Right now it's between like 5 and 10 minutes, right? And it's really new tech, I would say. It has matured and become very reliable over the past few months. If that should go to 30 minutes, right, for whatever reason, that's a concern. Okay. And the final one is monitoring these RPC endpoints, right? We use them all the time, right? If some are unavailable, right, and they are funded by the Treasury. So I think it's good that we have like a third party individual doing these checks on the endpoints to make sure that they are online and they are performing well, right? So I have like code that I'm familiar with that will do all these things. And to make sure that there's some integrity checks, because there should be archive databases and metadata should be a certain value. And, we go into tech. But those are the three things. So I just want to ask you now, Claudio, you saw the proposal. What did you think? From
I'm actually a bit confused because I didn't understand some of the techie side of it when it comes to like which database resizing. So is this specific for the validators, or does this also affect parachains, or it has nothing to do with parachains?
No. All of these databases are specific to the relay chain, right? Polkadot and Kusama, right? But we have different modes that we can do. We can say keep all the blocks, right? Which would be like an archive. We can say keep all the finalized blocks, right? That's one. We can say we want to prune. We want to keep like the last X amount of blocks. And then the same applies to things like state. So, and then we have two database types. We have ParityDB, which is, it has just emerged from a experimental, right? And it's faster, right? And then there's the RocksDB one, which I think is a Facebook originated database. So these are, it is technical, right? I can't take away from that, right? Because the technical guys are going to say, hey, you're too simple, right?
Yeah.
And the not, so I need to find that balance, right?
Yeah. You need to find, I think you need a description in the proposal that's explained in a non-technical way for the voters who are not so techie. And then for those who are techier, like I'm a database guy. So when it comes to programming code, like I don't understand a lot of it, especially in blockchain tech. I understand more now because I've been involved in it a lot, but not like hands-on involved, you know, so you can't talk to me too much about that. But when it comes to databases, I'm normally quite okay with that, right? Because I used to work with that. But I'm just kind of confused because I found that in the description, it wasn't very clear as to which, you know, is targeting, like which database is targeting and what is the reason for it. So maybe just like try to break that down, you know, and try to simplify it in non-technical and also technical. Maybe have like 2 short description sections, non-technical short description, technical short description. So I think,
I think that good advice when it should be on chain in on Monday, right? For discussion, sorry.
For
right.
7
So I
days.
should say on chain. Yeah, I will leave it for 14, right? Because I have a schedule and it affords 2 weeks discussion.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and I'll try to make it a lot more simple. But I think the RPC one, did you understand that in terms of, you know, we're trying to make sure it's online, make sure it's working properly.
Keep the connectivity. That makes sense. And also the 3 team members. So those are the guys that you were telling me about when we spoke about the validators that you're running and the backup, right? So they're your friends and also your colleagues. So let's talk about that. Do you think that would be enough to run this program, those 3 people, or do you think you may need to hire extra people along the way?
I'm confident that we can get it completed with these 3. And before, you know, putting together the proposal, you know, you want to be able to deliver. So I would have done, I do have some of it up and running already, right? I need to expand. So there's a lot of work was done to ensure that we can deliver.
Okay.
Right. And it's not something I can throw up on a website immediately, right? But, you know, we have little bits of code and scripts and we tried it out and, you know, right. So let's see if this could work, but, you know, we have to formalize it, you know, when we go into production. So essentially we wanted to, what we are proposing to achieve can be achievable, and we have done our due diligence. We had and some testing, so we're confident. Cool. But at the end of the day, I can't make up hardware, right? So I need help.
So let's talk about sustainability. How long do you plan to sustain this for with this funding you asked for, and then what are you going to do after that? Will you continue to go back to the Kusama Treasury, or will you be requesting funding from the Polkadot Treasury eventually?
Right. So I propose 2 options. One is in which we rent servers, right? And one in which we procure servers. And the procurement of the servers has a lower cost, monthly cost, right? I think I would hope that the procurement of the servers is the option that the community chooses. Okay. With that, the running cost in the future with all the services is fairly small. I think it's like 3,000 something, right, per month, which is, I think, a very reasonable amount. And the initial ask sustains the project, gets it up and running and everything for 1 year, right? Perfect. So yeah, so 3,000 a month is not that bad. And who knows what can happen at that point in time. I do think going to Polkadot at that point may be the way to go. And we need to gauge things. If it is that the treasury is depleted, right? We need to say, okay, can I sustain this out of my own pocket, right? Which I have done so far for the past 16 months, right? I just want to be able to notch it up. And if it could be sustained, hey, I'll put through the proposal. Perfect. Cool. Thank you very much, Will. I'm sorry, but we're running out of time again. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you. And by the way, if you are interested to check out Will Paranodes, you can find the link in the description of this video. You can also stake with him if you want. He's on Kusama and on Polkadot, so I'll be posting links to that also in the first video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Bye-bye.